I came back from trying to join the military, specifically the Marine Corps at Paris Island. And I came back and I went to the hospital for to a psych ward because of a psychotic breakdown, an anger. It was about anger. And I came out the hospital and I was like very psychedelic and mellow. And I said, I want to go back to college and become an engineer, and I'm going to need to take this one calculus course. So I took one calculus course over the summer and I failed it. And the thing is that I failed it because I couldn't focus. I was asking all sorts of different questions. I had so many mysterious questions as per why did all that happen? Why did I go through all the things I went through? And why am I having these mysterious dreams? So I couldn't really focus and I couldn't really pass the class. And the funny thing is that after that, I decided to major in philosophy because that's what I thought would help me answer my questions. Now that's where the foolishness started, because I did pass a few classes. I passed metaphysics and I passed American philosophy. But the thing is that the logic, it's just something about the logic class, a formal logic class that I just couldn't pass. Now I said I still wanted to continue with philosophy, and I said that there's something about philosophy that is not in the will of God. And I said that if it's not in the will of God, I'm going to need power to keep on going on outside of the will of God. Because if something's outside of the will of God, I can't expect to be operating in God's power if I'm outside of the will of God. So eventually I came up with this idea, I don't know how, because as per the secrets of my heart, to buy something called the Satanic Bible. Now, I didn't do my research until after I bought the thing. And the thing was pretty cheap. It was a slim diatribe, a slim book. It was all black with the image of the sigil of Baphomet on the front. Now, the sigil of Baphomet is a goat with a pentagram, which is part of the symbolism of the Church of Satan. That's the organization that the Satanic Bible comes from. Now, that's part of something called Satanism, which is legitimately a religion in the United States of America. It's an above ground religion that started in 1966. But the thing is that Satanism is something that existed long before 1966. Okay. It was part of the occult witchcraft circles that literally worship the devil. Now, the Satanists of the Church of Satan, they don't admit that they worship the devil. They just say that the devil is a symbol of their pride, their liberty, and their individualism, and they're going against the norms of Christianity and exalting themselves and enjoying their self-pleasure and their sexual pleasure and their individuality against the dogma of the Christian church. Now, of course, before all that, I was a Christian, and I'm still a Christian. The thing is that was in 2018. Now, in 2019, I had my year of atheism because, the Satanists, they also say that they're atheists. Now, that's what I say is the foolishness that I was engaging in. Now, during that year, I took a class about Immanuel Kant's Critique of Pure Reason. I still tried to take another logic class. And I also tried to take some class about investing, which I didn't get through. And I also tried to take another calculus course, which I also failed. And I also tried to take an accounting course. Now, the thing about accounting is that I failed accounting a few years back when I was trying to take economics, and I took it again. I think I passed it. The thing is that I failed most of those classes in 2019. But the thing is that, I was using the Satanism to empower me to keep on studying philosophy. The problem with that is that the Satanism has its own philosophy. So I was trying to follow Satanism and be an atheist and study philosophy in 2019. But that entire concoction just wasn't working, if you understand what I mean. Now, when I was actually doing my own self-study of philosophy, there were a few philosophers that kind of clung to me, if you understand what I mean. There was Friedrich Nietzsche. And the problem with him is that he's a philosopher that said that God is dead, and thus spoke Zarathustra. Now, when he said God is dead, he was literally advocating for atheism. But the thing is that I liked his writing style, I liked his language, I liked his expression, I liked his spirit, I liked his concept of the will to power, right? That it's just a life force that just keeps on trying to grow and gain power just because it is a will to power. That everything is about overcoming, and everything is about overcoming obstacles. Everything is about extending your power, and that's what the will to power is about. But that's obviously a result of accepting the God is dead proposition. Now, then there was also the Wittgenstein, which was a philosopher that I read while studying philosophy of language. And that one's really mostly about, the world is mystical, that all there is in the world is everything that is the case, that we make logical pictures of the facts of the world. And then there's his what he calls the language games, which is just about following along with the philosopher Wittgenstein. And the thing is that they were both German philosophers. And then there was another philosopher that his name was Slavoj Zizek, is a Slovenian, philosopher. Who's a contemporary philosopher, which means that he's still alive. And the funny thing about him is that he's both a Hegelian, a Marxist, and a Lacanian. So he does philosophy and psychoanalysis. That basically talks about what he wishes that communism were still a thing, and it's not exactly the philosophy that I associate with wealth, if you understand what I mean. But the thing is that during that time, I stole a bunch of books from the library of City College, where I was studying at, and that's where I got all these philosophies from. That's also some of the foolishness that was going on, because eventually I had to throw them all away. And eventually I went to another hospital, and I had to leave my parents' house, and I went to the homeless shelter, and eventually the homeless shelter system in New York City, and eventually I got this apartment of mine. And you see, when I say foolishness, is that I was spending my time trying to love wisdom, trying to study the love of wisdom, and trying to be wise, and trying to sound like an intellectual, trying to be an intellectual type of person. Meanwhile, I was engaging in a lot of foolishness. Now, fast forward to 2023, I had sex for the first time. I lost my virginity, and that gave me a lot to think about. It wasn't until about 2024 or so when I started making YouTube videos, and I started to reason about how that affected me. And you see, in 2025, I realized that I was dealing with a certain problem, a problem of whether or not a Christian can be demon-possessed. Now, in my soul, in my spirit, I get these dreams where they say, sometimes we remember that you look like the devil. You look like the devil. So I said, is that a matter of being demon-possessed? I say that you could be oppressed by the devil, you can be under attack by the demonic forces, but to be actually demon-possessed would be difficult if you really are born again, if you really are a Christian. Now, I find myself wanting to turn the page to a different field of study, namely engineering, which obviously the strategy and the ability to go forth and to actually become an engineer will actually be difficult. But I realize that I have to study philosophy again. But the thing is that I have to study it differently. I have a introduction to philosophy textbook that I kind of took without permission, that was kind of free for me to take, that kind of goes over what philosophy is again. The thing is that it goes over God and evil, but it doesn't talk directly about the devil. And then it goes on to other subjects. But the thing is that being a Christian can be difficult. You say, was that persecution of a spiritual persecution of myself as a Christian? I'm not sure. But there certainly was a lot of foolishness.